Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
What is up, everyone, and welcome into the Beneath the Waves podcast, your weekly recap of all things Seattle hockey and beyond. I'm Matt.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Derek.
We are now on to episode 61 of the BTW pod. On today's episode, we are going to catch up on the last week of games. We'll talk about the playoff picture, which is quickly closing in on us with only 10 games remaining before the season is over, and we'll check in on all the other Kraken news as well. But first, before we get into all of the things that we have to talk about, we always have to give a little Heather hype for BTW's own Heather. No new articles from her this week for the hockey news, but she did have a chat with former reserve players Jada Habish and Sydney Langseth, an article that will be coming soon. And she was also in attendance today for the Torrent's home return and went to the presser, which she might very well be in right now. Game just wrapped shortly before we hit record. So you can look forward to some new articles next week, which you can find at the Hockey News W on Twitter or at Heather Nicole. And of course, that is Nicole with no E. Things in the Torrent world are not looking super great right now. They had a very Kraken-esque week, a very mid-week. Last week they had a 4-1 win versus the Sirens, and that was a super fun game to watch. If you did not catch it live, if you don't want to go watch the whole game, at least go check out the highlights, because the Torrent were finally playing the type of hockey that we hoped the Torrent would play. Super exciting seeing all those goals go up on the board. Unfortunately, those goals did not pile up in our 2-0 loss to the Charge that we had today. So, as of right now, in the playoff picture in the PWHL, Boston officially is in. And while it is not yet official, the Torrent have to be very, very close to being out of the playoff picture and activating that gold plan. But there are, I would say, two silver linings in the Torrent world right now. First off, the captain, HK21, made her return back to the lineup. She's been out with an injury since the Olympics, so she rejoined, and she was just getting thrown around today. I don't know if she had a target on her back or what, but she was taking all of the hits. And also, we talked about it last week, and it turned out to be true. Teresa Shefzal, who was recently acquired in that trade that involved Jesse Eldridge, has just been absolutely on fire. We had a post we put out following that Sirens game that in the 3 games that she had played, she had 4 points with the team already. So she came out and made a big impact. Do you guys have any takes on how the Torrent have been doing in this last week?
I tuned into the game today, about like the start of the third period, and I was texting with Matt. Honestly, watching the state of the Torrent right now, it did make me feel better about the state of the Seattle Kraken. I feel like things are not going well with the Torrent. They definitely need some upgrades at different positions or just to start clicking well. I don't really know. But obviously, last of the standings, things aren't going well. Shutout loss at home, that sucks. But really hopeful that they turn it around and that people start popping off because that's what they need. And yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts.
I just think it's first year jitters. I don't know why. Like, I just feel like this team just can't figure it out fully and mesh or, get their chemistry working. So I'm going to kind of give it to that first year jitters. And hopefully, once this season rounds out, they can kind of figure it out and head into their second season and, absolutely explode on the right at the beginning. So it's the first season. There's plenty of more seasons to come. So it's not the end of the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, and one good or big positive thing as well, there was once again 16,000 plus fans for the Torrent game, so that's huge. There's still continued passion and interest even with the team not doing great. As long as we start clicking and being awesome once we are knocked out and the goal plan is in effect, I am all for it. So again, that's got to be coming up pretty soon here. Probably if we drop it one more game, it's got to be a nail in the coffin, but we will just have to wait and see. And as always, once again, if you wanted to keep up with all things Torrent, make sure you go follow at Heather Nicole. That is Heather Nicole with no E on the end for all of her work over at the Hockey News. All right, shifting over to Kraken potential sadness, potential hype. We'll see how today goes. But first, we are going to dip in with Alex's recurring segment, Money Puck Around and Find Out. Alex, how do things look?
So, yeah, the money puck o-meter has definitely been going up and down. I don't know about you guys, but it's been something that I've been checking every morning I wake up. Early morning, alarm goes off. It's probably one of the first things I check, like an addict that I am. So right now, as of today of recording, the Seattle Kraken have a 25.8% chance to secure a playoff spot. So it's definitely gone up a bit. It hasn't gone down, but we're still sitting on that, quarter chance of securing a playoff spot this season. So, we're not really sitting there confident in the sense of like, it can happen. But then you also look at the Pacific, you look at the wild card, and anything can happen. The Kraken also have a 3.8% chance to secure that first overall pick. I think at that point, we're just looking at that to say, it's there, but let's be serious. If we somehow secured that, it'd be an absolute shock to the system across, the entire NHL if that were to happen. So yeah, we have that 25.8% chance to secure a playoff spot. It's gone up, so that's been the positive. I don't know about you. Last week I was pretty negative. This week, I don't know. We've managed to secure a point in each of the games, so there's been positive there. So I'm I'm neutral. I think I'm like neutral. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get too depressed about this team because if I start doing that, my mood shifts, as you've seen in previous podcast episodes. So yeah, I'm gonna remain neutral right there, and just say, hey, we have a shot, but I'm not expecting much at the end of the day. What about you guys?
So Alex, if you had to rate your vibe check right now, 0 to 10, would you say you're about like a 5?
I'm like a 4. I think probably like between a 4 and a 5. Like it's more like this team drives me absolutely insane because like you see what they do and it's like, oh, like the fans have been talking about this for months or for years. Why isn't this fixed? And then the other side of things, I'm like, if they make the playoffs, they make the playoffs. So I'm kind of like in this weird bout of like, if they make the playoffs, it's extra Kraken hockey. I'm amped about that. But if they make the playoffs, they're going to forfeit one of those top 10 picks, and I'm going to be salty about it. So I'm kind of like, if one side or the other, it's going to be like excitement and depression on the other end. Because, even if we make the playoffs, I'm not optimistic about it. So I'm going to be like, playoff hockey, but playoff hockey. And if we don't make the playoffs, I'm be like, we have the opportunity. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, top 10 pick. That's kind of where I'm at. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I'm sitting at more of like a 6 or a 7 right now on out of 10. Oh, Matt, were you just itching your nose there or what was
You're
that?
like an eyelash or something.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting finger to use for that. But anyways, I'd say I'm at a 6 or a 7. I feel like right now the Kraken are sort of, our playoff odds didn't go down like you said. They went up about 6%. And it's like in the MLB when you have like a 2 strike count and no balls and you're like the last out of the game and you're just fouling off pitches. We're just fouling off pitches right now. We're getting these loser points. We're staying right above water where we need to be right now. We're still within striking distance. Um, and so I feel pretty good about that. I remember the last pod we were all doom and gloom, and we were kind of really except Matt, sorry. Matt wasn't really doom and gloom, but Alex and I were like levels of doom and gloom not seen on this podcast before. And Matt was trying to keep things stable, I guess. But I just kind of blacked out. But anyway, we were talking about these 3 games, and I was saying we were talking about how impactful these 3 games were going to be. Like after these 3 games, if we were basically out of it, then it's time to just like youth movement it up, chill out, and focus on the pick. That's not where we're at after these 3 games. These 3 games, the Kraken. We're going to talk about it, but the Kraken showed up these 3 games. So vibes are good for me. I'm happy that we got a point out each of the 3 games this week. Matt, how are you feeling?
If we had this week back in November, I would be at like a 10 because beating the two-time reigning champs, beating the Lightning, who are traditionally good, beating the Sabres, who are at the top this year, that'd be awesome. Or, well, not beating, but hanging with. That would be awesome. But it is the end of March, and we are quickly running out of runway to make this happen on. So I was 5 last week. I'm gonna say that I'm at a 7 this week. It's like a solid B grade. We're feeling good. No, 5-7, I said. We're getting a good B grade. I think, if you look at the Lightning game, we had a tweet that we put out that the Kraken are 1-7-1 all time against the Lightning, so horrible record. Jordan Eberle at the time led our team with 51 points, and Tampa had 4 players over that mark, including Kucherov, who had 120 points. Kucherov had 24 points in his last 10 games coming into that one, and we have 10 players that have 24 points all season. So, like, the deck was stacked against us. It was David versus Goliath, and we made it happen. We clawed our way, and we had probably one of my new favorite goals of all time with that super nasty Monty no look 5-hole shot that went in. Like, I jumped out of my chair when that happened. It was unreal. So again, I'm choosing to stay positive and looking to the future. But we gotta lock it in here right away. We do have the benefit of, we checked just before we started, Nashville did lose today, so I think we're only 2 points out of a spot with like 2 games in hand on them. So it is still totally possible.
Absolutely, Matt. And that gets us to where the Kraken currently sit after this week, which is at a record of 32, 29, and 11. We are currently out of a playoff spot with 10 games remaining on the season. Game 70 was against the Panthers, was a shootout loss 5-4. Game 71 was a 4-3 overtime W that Matt alluded to against the Lightning. And game 72 was a 3-2 shootout loss against the Buffalo Sabres. So all 3 of these games this week going to overtime, kind of like what I was saying, fouling off pitches. We're just matching what the opponent's doing, getting into overtime. If we win, that's great against the Lightning. We picked up the loser points in the other 2. But our first topic for today, the last time we recorded, the Kraken had gone without points in their last 4 games. So I think that's why Alex and I were so down. We sunk down to that 20% playoff chance, which is 1/5. That's 1/5, Matt, I think.
Checks
and
out.
now
I
we're
teach fractions, that checks out.
Now we're at 1/4, 1/4, because it's 25%. Yeah, a quarter, yes. And we were looking at the 3 games ahead, and we had 2 really tough games. The Panthers aren't that good this year, but the Lightning and the Sabres had 2 really rough games. And both of those teams are at 96 and 98 points, fighting for the top of the Atlantic Division. And the Kraken fought hard and have developed a now 3-game point streak in the 3 games since we last spoke. How do we feel about their level of compete right now? And what could this mean for the remaining 10 games from what you're seeing, Alex?
I want to be optimistic because you competed really strongly against the Lightning. You competed strongly against the Sabres. The Panthers were that was an interesting game. I don't know about you, but that game I think that was the game that I kind of lost my ever-loving mind online, because let's be serious, the Panthers are like an AHL affiliate right now with the amount of injuries they have. So I feel like that was a game that we could have we should have won. Like that's a lost point in my opinion. And then I look at the Sabre game. Yeah, they're one of the best teams in the league right now, but like we were leading that game 2-0. And we dropped a point there as well. So, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate in the sense of like, you realistically could have come out of this week with a full 6 points, which would be game changing. Now, having said that, I remember last week when we were talking about this and discussing, the next couple games, ahead, someone asked, I don't know if it was whichever one of you guys asked, being
It was
like,
probably one of us.
Probably. This is called.
My cat walked in. It's when Derek's cat stole his webcam.
This is called Alex with no cold medicine. This is just I'm just living it right now. In regards of like how many points do you think we're going to secure? How many wins are we going to get? And I pretty much looked at this and said, 0 for 3, because like, I was very very, very convinced that we were going to drop the ball on the Panthers, and we almost did. Like that comeback was insane. I was 1,000 convinced we were going to drop it against the Lightning. You know, we ended up winning that one. And then the Sabres are the Sabres this year. Any other year, you'd be like, oh, it's Buffalo. We could totally beat them. This year, completely different story. So, you know, securing a point from them is a positive. When we come into like the final 10 games of the season, you know, maybe it's just enough, you know, drive for this team to get their head out of the sand and, you know, play hard. You know, they're defending each other and actually playing like a team, a cohesive team. Now, having said that, this team is streaky beyond belief. So, you know, we could have three relatively positive games this week and completely fall off the deep end, you know, next week. So right now, I'm going to be optimistic and say, yeah, they're going to figure this out and drive forward for the remaining 10 games. But it's the Seattle Kraken, and realistically, anything can happen with this team.
You frame this as how do we feel about their level of compete? I think if you look at the Panthers game, that's the one that kind of highlights it because we went down, we went down 3 points early on in the game. Riker got us one back. And if you think about it, we had five unanswered goals because the Panthers' final goal was an own goal from Shane Wright. It bounced in off his stick. So unfortunately, that doesn't count towards his stats. But the three goals that followed came in less than 3 minutes, and it was just absolutely electric. So they could have, I feel Kraken teams of past would have just packed it in and leisurely skated out the end of the game. But they didn't. They bit down on their mouthpieces, or if you're Vince Dunn, you dangled it a little less, and we took it to overtime. We took it to the shootout. Unfortunately for this team, we are not a shootout team because, as I saw someone on Reddit say, like shootouts favor those teams with top end talent, and we don't have top end skill making players that can do fancy dangles and things like that. Like we had Freddie Gaudreau, who's one of the top rated percentage wise. He couldn't get it done. We had Bobby McMann, who's on a streak. He couldn't get it done. We had Jordan Eberle, who we always just throw in, even though I'm not sure he's had many shootout goals. I think I saw a stat that our shootout record all time now is like 9-18 or something like that. So
Surprised it's that
anytime
high.
anytime it goes to the shootout, I am fearing that it's going to add on to that 18. But yeah, effort, I'm feeling good. We're not calling it in.
Yeah, quick note on that Panthers game. Matthew Tkachuk had the highest amount of expected goals on the Panthers that game with 0.45. We had three players above that. Bobby McMann with 0.47, Matty Beniers with 0.5, and Jordan Eberle with 0.61. So those are your three dogs of the game if you want to think about it like that. But getting over to the playoff picture really quick. First in line are the Nashville Predators at 74 games played and 77 points at the time of this recording. Second in line are the LA Kings at 73 games played and 76 points. So the Kraken have a game in hand on LA and 2 games in hand on Nashville, but sit at 75 points. So it's going to be very chaotic, but also quite fun to be following all three of these Western Conference teams all at the same time. The Predators and the Kraken both have the exact same MoneyPuck season points projection of 85.4, and the Kings have a projection of 86.7. So if you think about it, according to MoneyPuck, if LA drops a win that they should have had, and we pick up a win that we shouldn't have had, spoiler alert, our next game is against the Edmonton Oilers with a 40% chance of winning. So maybe that's the one right there. Easily could leapfrog both of these teams. Vegas, it's less likely now. They're projected to be at 90 points, but two questions. One's obviously fake. The other one is serious. Do you think it's realistic for the Kraken to make the playoffs? That's the fake one. But the real question is, should we break our podcast up into 3 different sections each show until the end of the season? One covering the Kraken, then the Kings and the Predators, so that everyone's informed on what's going on. What do you guys think?
I'm still holding true to the hope that we snag that wild card 2 spot that I thought we would at the start of the season. And if we do break the pod up into 3 parts, dibs on Kraken because I don't care about other teams. But I did say before, if it comes down to the end of the season and we miss out by just like a point or 2 points. I think that the most heartbreaking part of the season, to me at least, will be the two games against the Predators that we had a couple weeks ago. When, like, if we would have taken those 4 points from them and given them zeros, it'd be a whole different ballgame, a whole different story. But alas, here we are crawling from behind and trying to play catch up.
Yeah, so on the theoretical question on the Kraken making the playoffs, I don't know. The Pacific is that bad that you cannot really determine who's going to actually make the playoffs. I was looking at the standings and it shows I think it was Colorado and Minnesota have already secured a playoff spot, or was it Dallas? And then the Pacific, it's like all teams are still like no one's clinched because it's so bad that it can completely change. So the fact that like we could be talking about like who's going to make the playoffs and it could be realistically going down to the last game is absolutely wild to think, because like we could be going to the last game of the season and being like so the Kings, the Predators and the Kraken all have a shot at making the playoffs depending on this game for that wild card 2 spot. And hypothetically, you could even be in like, oh, well, Edmonton's in the mix at this point because like we don't know how this is going to work out. So it's kind of crazy to think. So like, scratch that 3-parter, and you might have to add a 4th-parter depending what happens with Edmonton. So, I'm not covering any of those teams though. Like we are specific to the Seattle Kraken. So I don't care what Connor McDavid does, even though he's got the hands of McJesus. So yeah, it's going to be a wild end to a season, and it's going to be like none other because let's be serious, none of these teams deserve to make the playoffs.
Well, if you look at the schedule, like we got some heavy impact games coming up because we played the Oilers, we play the Mammoth, so that's a wild card matchup game, and then in our last 5 games we have Vegas, Calgary, LA, Vegas again, and Colorado. So that's pretty west heavy stretch there at the end. That's going to
Yeah.
make this pretty exciting.
Yeah. Did you mention playing the Kings?
Yeah,
The
Yes.
Kraken? Okay. The Kings and Predators also play each other twice between now and the end of the season. So
this.
yeah, the advocacy for breaking our pod into 3 chunks is gaining legitimacy because there's a lot that's going to be going on.
Like
We get a
come
lot
back-
of extra push notifications
we could come
being
back next
put on
week
my
and
phone.
yeah, we could come back next week and like it could be like, oh, like the Kraken have this many, and like the Kings have this, or all 3 have the same amount of points.
Yeah,
Like it's
regardless,
insane.
it's gonna be fun. I think it'll be chaotic. And hopefully, the Kraken are in the mix until the end, and it's just a very chaotic and fun end of the season for an otherwise pretty horrible division. Even though the Predators aren't in the division, they are benefiting from the Pacific being so bad, obviously, in their wild card hunt.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved.
Okay, moving on, boys. The Kraken are showing interest in keeping Bobby McMann. Per Elliot Friedman and anyone's common sense, if you ask me, the Kraken are indeed trying to iron out a deal with Bobby McMann before he hits free agency this summer. Something I mentioned on the pod when Alex said the point about McMann playing on a line with Matthews, and that being why McMann had the point in goal totals he did when we were breaking down the trade, is that McMann only averaged about 15 minutes of time on ice each game with Toronto. With Seattle, he has 0 games below 1658 time on ice, and his average with Seattle since the trade is 19 minutes and 9 seconds, and it's scaling up. The past 3 games were all over 20 minutes. One was like 22 minutes, but obviously there's overtime. I don't know if he played a minute in overtime or whatever. Um, in addition to this time on ice factor, it seems to be his lightning fast speed and just the general nature in which he fits in with his Kraken teammates that have led to him now posting 11 points in 8 games, 7 goals, and 4 assists. At a time in which the Kraken have needed that production the most, what stands out to you guys in terms of McMahon's play the most? Matt, what do you think?
So I want to first start with saying that I tweeted from our account during one of the games when I was live tweeting it, like we need to get a contract in his locker stall now. Like I don't care if it's written on a napkin saying we're going to pay you X million dollars for X number of years or what it is, but we need to sign him now. GMJB, you need to contact all the Brinks trucks in Seattle and have them back up to Bobby McMann's front step. Like I have been keeping in mind for the new jerseys that are coming out next year, or rumored to be coming out next year. Like Berkeley Catton was earmarked for that one. I was like, we're gonna support a home province guy. But Bobby McMann, this dude has me fired up. He has injected life not just back into me, but into this team. And we're gonna talk more about that in Milestones later. Like he's just unreal. And I feel like this has to be one of the best steals, deals, whatever word you want to do from the trade deadline, because Mike Ben tweeted out as well that Bobby McMann is the most effective player with his new team since the trade deadline. He has gotten either the most goals or the most points. I can't remember what she said, but he's producing and we want him to keep producing. He's 29, I think. So it's not like he's super old. Let's lock him down for like he's not super old.
Yeah,
He's
he's
not a
pretty old.
31 he's not a 31-year-old guy that will drop a 7-year contract on. He's a 29-year-old guy who will drop a 7-year contract in. But I want us to sign him. I need us to sign him, especially if he's going to be someone who can replace Jaden Schwartz, who's coming up on free agency this summer. Take that Jaden Schwartz money, sprinkle a little extra dollar bills on top of it, and put it in his locker stall.
Yeah, when I think about Robert William Lucas McMahon,
Oh, he's got a double middle name?
oh yeah, he's got
That's fire.
yeah. So when I think about this guy, yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I was pretty hyped about him when the initial rumors were coming out on trade deadline day. I still remember it. Friedman was like, "Yeah, it sounds like McMahon's gonna be going west," and I'm like, "West?" I'm like, "The Seattle Kraken?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. The Seattle Kraken couldn't do something like that." And then when the tweet actually dropped, being like, "Yeah, McMahon's going to Seattle," I was like, "No way." Okay. So, part of me was like, okay, like, is this like the first of many trades? And, and Derek will attest to this, be like, oh, you're positive, but not too positive about it. But the more I think about it, he has been dynamic for this team. Like, he has been solid and has solidified himself as a goal scorer for this team. We were screaming for somebody to put the puck in the back of the net. And, Mr. Robert William Lucas McMahon came in and said, "Hold my beer." From Wainwright, Alberta, said, "I got this," and he did so. I don't care what the number is when it comes to McMahon's contract with the Seattle Kraken, but they need to get it across the line. He is the perfect Kraken player. Like, I think when you think of or you envision what a Seattle Kraken player looks like Bobby McMann just kicks down the door and says, "I'm here." Goal total aside, he is exactly what this team needed, and hopefully the management can do something here in securing him, not only for a year or two, but for a long-term deal. He's going to be 30 in June, so that 7-year contract still kind of makes sense for in Seattle Kraken standards. But even if you offer him like a 3 or 4 or 5-year deal at a relatively solid number, I think it's a home run because we've mentioned this in the past. That cap's just going to keep rising, and we're going to be looking at these $5-6 million deals, and we're going to be like, they're pennies on the dollar at that point. But yeah, he has been terrific, and I hope he just keeps generating goals and keeps playing at the level that he's been playing at, because he's got 26 goals on the year, and he's been lights out since he's become a Seattle Kraken.
He's at 26 on the year with 10 games to go, and there have been three instances in Kraken lifetime of someone having higher goal numbers than that on a season. They're all Jared McMann. So maybe it's like a Mick thing that makes you do well, but we have like a
You mean
four.
wait? You mean McCann?
Did I do it?
Yeah, he
To
did it.
Jared McMann.
Well, he is the McMahon, and Bobby's the McMahon. And Jared McCann had 27 goal season, a 40 goal season, and a 29 goal season. So you got
He could
Bobby and
totally hit.
Jared there at the top.
He could hit 30 this year. That the pace that he's going, 30 is not off the table.
Couple hat tricks before the season's done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I appreciate you, Alex, referencing like the beginning of when we first got McMahon and how as things have progressed, it's just become more solidified because it was not just you, it was actually a lot of you listening, a lot of the community, a lot of the fan base that was not too positive or keen on obtaining Bobby McMann during the trade deadline wrapping up. In fact, on March 6th, when the Kraken traded a second and fourth round pick for an expiring Bobby McMann, Emerald City Hockey posted on X asking if the move, adding another middle six winger, really moves the needle, quote. This post had 27 responses, including a response from Alex and a response from me. Out of the 27 responses, there was one that just definitively said, yes, just the word yes, it moves the needle when answering that question, and that one was mine. So, as the Elden Lord Rob on Twitter said, I'm doing my victory lap right now with this Bobby McMann take. But I wanted to go through some of the highlights of the remaining 26 comments where we are the Seattle Mid Kraken. That was written by Alex here on the pod. Kraken Canada is doing a beautiful wave right now to the camera. Quote, nope, wrote Kraken for life. No, it doesn't. Wrote at Shreddy182. Spent a second and fourth on a non-factor. This organization is getting increasingly hard to root for, said George C. Kraken. George C. Kraken, fan of the show, I think. Another third line forward on an expiring deal, and you will send down a young guy to make room, said Dan Parnell. And not a bit, said Daryl Bratz. I wanted to give a shout out to Paul Cronin, who said he skates fast and causes a bit of chaos when he's on. Or the few folks who said can't hurt, such as Fishy Business or Pierre Dupont. And I just want to address some of the comments. I do agree that if we let him, if he somehow walks, I do think the picks are probably a waste, especially if we don't make the playoffs. If we make the playoffs and he walks, I think there's an argument that the picks were kind of worth it. You're basically just trading a second and fourth to go to the playoffs, which, I mean, there's some teams that would kill for that. But yeah, we need to re-sign him for it to be like a good deal, in my opinion. But even when he was incoming, I think Matt is the first one that pointed out to us where he was like second on the team in goals and like fifth on the team in points or whatever. That alone, with his 15 minutes of ice time that I mentioned on the pod, that alone was enough, I think, to signal that, hey, this guy's a good addition. And I think Bobby McMann has done the impossible in making the front office look amazing. What do you guys think?
I think if you take the spent a second and fourth on a non-factor, you apply that to Mason Marchment, you don't apply that to Bobby McCann. Because when we made that trade, I had said
You mean
before,
McMahon?
I can't tell now if you're like
No, you
fucking with
literally
me.
said Bobby McCann. I swear to God. You said
Thanks.
Jared McMahon and Bobby McCann.
I hate. Let's make this. Can we make a shirt that says Jared McMahon, Bobby McMahon, Bobby McCann?
Yeah.
I can't even intentionally do it wrong.
Oh my
God, I
gosh.
hate this. Anyway, when we acquired, I'm going to use first names. When we acquired Bobby, I has said like we essentially gave away what we earned back from getting rid of Mason Marchment. So we just converted it into something that's actually getting done, and I love it. He's Right now, he's fourth on the team in points, so he's kind of weaseled his way up a little bit. And you got to think as well, where would he be if he didn't have to sit on the bench for 3 games while his visa stuff was being sorted out? We need to remember he was kept on the back seat for a while as we had to shuffle around his paperwork because this was made after, office hours closed on a Friday. We just couldn't get it done at 9 in the morning to get that paperwork filed faster. But yeah, he's I mean, I don't tweet from my own account because it's all like bots and you two guys. But if I did tweet, I would say, heck yeah, let's do this.
I'm gonna say that I think regardless if we make the playoffs or if we don't and McMahon walks, I think it's a failure.
Oh, 1,000%.
Like 1,000%. Like, and that's like I think you don't acquire someone like McMahon to just say, oh, we want to see what you can do, and if you make the playoffs, then awesome, and if you don't, well, it is what it is, and we'll just let you go. Like, I don't think that's something that's going to happen. Like, if that ends up being the case, then like full blame is on management. In terms of Derek, what you're mentioning in the sense of like, I think this is a home run for the management side. I think I don't think it can be called a home run in the sense of like,
We're playing hockey, not baseball.
well, that's one thing, but like in another way, like I don't know when you look at this team, like, yes, McMahon is definitely a top 6 guy. I would even say a top 3 guy on this team on how he plays. But like this management is also the reason why this team is in this predicament. Why, they they are fighting to secure a playoff spot in the one of the worst divisions in NHL history. Like if we're being honest. So like yeah, we can acquire a player here and there, and like McMahon has been a player that has been outstanding for this team. But like I just can't be like, hey, this makes management look like geniuses. Like I can give management their flowers on this and say, yes, absolutely great piece of, great deal, great asset management. But there's still a lot of key components to this for me to be like, good job, management, like high fives all around. Like if you don't re-sign him, that's one thing. I need to see other things happening before I can say, good job, management. Excellent job. Like there's things that need to happen still for me to be like, job well done.
Gotcha. I agree. I agree that you can't say the management overall is home run now, but isolating the acquisition of McMahon for the second and the fourth, where the narrative all across the media,
Oh yeah.
and all across the fan base was this does not move the needle. We all agree that 8 games into McMahon's tenure with the Kraken, he has certainly been probably the only or one of the only needle movers
He's been the best
offensively.
player on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, and I just wanted to say I titled this part of the pod "Time to Face the McMusic." So yeah, if everyone wants to go on Twitter and like all my posts of like me flexing that I called it, that would be great because helps me sleep at night. But moving on, we will go to the Alex is shaking his head, by the way. He's fed up. And then for an injuries update, Jared McCann returned against the Sabres on Saturday. Jane Schwartz is still out of commission from his face injury that he took with the boot of the skate to the face. Shane Wright left the game following a hard hit from Logan Stanley in Buffalo. He is listed as day-to-day now. And not an injury, but in the last week, Oscar Fisker-Molgaard and Logan Morrison were called up from the Firebirds, and Yanni Newman and Logan Morrison were both sent back down. And it was also revealed this week that Ryan Winterton has been absent from the team following the passing of his older brother Jacob from stage 4 bone cancer at age 25. Tributes poured in from all over the hockey world for Jacob, who played in the OHL for the Flint Firebirds and Oshawa Generals. In a post on Instagram, Ryan said, "Today I lost my best friend. You weren't just someone I loved, you were someone I looked up to, someone who guided me, believed in me, and helped shape the person I am today. Watching you fight so hard and still having to say goodbye is a pain that never really fades. I'll miss your voice, your advice, and the way you made everything feel a little less heavy. Some days will be harder than others, but I'll hold on to the love, the lessons, and the memories you left me with. You'll always be a part of me and everything I do. Forever loved, forever missed. Until we meet again, Copes." And obviously just absolutely heartbreaking stuff. You know, 25 years old, just insane to think about. And I'm sure I speak for all of us that we're insanely sad to hear that this happened. Do you guys have any thoughts that you want to chip in or?
Yeah, it's all of our condolences to him, his family, the Kraken family. Uh, Cancer's no joke. It's hit my family directly. That's how I lost my dad. My grandpa's dealing with it right now. So, yeah, especially at 25, that's super, super unfortunate.
Goalie updates. Joey, he played against Florida. He had 2.52 expected goals against and 4 actual goals against. So, yikers! You might be able to say this one's on Joey a little bit. Because the expected goals were like 3.5, Kraken to 2.5 Florida. So we actually kind of outplayed Florida in regulation. Joey allowed 4 out of 25 shots for an 840 save percentage and is now 45th in the NHL in goals saved above expected per 60, with a minimum of 5 games played, where Matt Murray is still first, by the way, baby. Let's go. Philip Grubauer played against the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Buffalo Sabres. Against Tampa Bay, he had 2.5 expected goals against and allowed 3 goals, so 0.5 less than or over expected. He stopped 30 of 33 shots with a 909 save percentage. And then the game against Buffalo, he had a stellar outing. 3.18 expected goals against. He only allowed 2. He saved 34 of 36 shots. Alex, you'll love this. He had a 944 save percentage, Philip Grubauer. So both of Grubauer's games this week above 900. He's locking in for the playoff push. He played the 2 toughest teams this week, Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Joey struggling against Florida, but we hope he bounces back. It's a really good sign that Gru is playing like this against these tough opponents, especially as we go into playoffs. If he could get hot like he was in the Colorado series, if we make the playoffs and he's just like dialed, oh my, like goaltending can kind of carry you low key sometimes. So who knows? How do you guys feel about the goalies this week?
Well, for me, I think this season you got to give me credit. I've been pretty neutral when it's come to goaltending. And I'll be honest here, Joey against the game in Florida looked like he was a beer league goaltender who was heavily intoxicated. I love Joey, but man, like
That's
he didn't
gross.
look good. Like he looked all over the place and just didn't seem like he could figure out where the puck was going. So yeah, beer league, inebriated goaltender there. But he'll bounce back. Grubauer, you know how I've been over the last 60 61 episodes of Philip Grubauer, but I can't say anything bad about him at all. Like resurgence, maybe. Like, you know, he's been fantastic, and he is probably the reason why we are in a position that we're currently in. Joey has been reliable here and there, but Grubauer overall has been probably the best goaltender that we've had this season. So hats off to him. And if we do somehow make it to the playoffs, like you've mentioned, Derek, goaltending can lead you pretty far. And I would absolutely love to witness, Grubauer just get absolutely smoldering hot and just destroy the Colorado Avalanche. That would be amazing to witness.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep it short and quick. Grubauer, we're loving this resurgence. I'm already starting to plan when we do our top 10 stories of the year, and his resurgence has to be right up there. And I think if you look at his numbers and his gameplay, it really passes the eye test. And that's a little tease for something coming up later. Derek is now taking a lasagna out of his oven. I can see his cat on the post behind him.
Wait, how do you know it was lasagna? I'm genuinely
Lucky.
asking.
Lucky guess.
Oh my gosh, what the hell? Actually insane. Are you in my walls? Holy.
Yeah.
And Matt, do we have any milestones this week for the Kraken players? What's going on?
For the first time in several weeks, we actually have some milestones. Some positive milestones we'll specify for sure. So the first big one being Adam Larson played in his 1000th NHL game on Tuesday against the Panthers. In now 1002 NHL games, he has recorded 57 goals and 205 assists. A big stat from the Big Cat is that he has only missed one game for the Seattle Kraken. One game for the Seattle Kraken, and that was not just like I think he had the flu or something on board. Nope, it was to be there for the birth of his child, which we will allow you to take a game off. That seems like a pretty important thing. So, when do Thursday is the Kraken's next home game, and I think they're going to do the whole silver stick ceremony for his 1000th game. Are you working that one? Do you know?
What day is that?
Thursday.
I should be working that one. That's
Sweet.
sick. That'll be the third silver stick I've seen. I saw Giordano's the like day before he got traded or whatever. He didn't play in the game, and then Jordan Eberle's last year. Is that when that was?
No,
Two,
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Wow, time's
Because he
flying by.
re-signed right before it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I don't know. My mind for his kid. Is this his second kid or does he only have one kid?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. I just
We can
assume that
say
if
one for sure. We can say
You
one
can you
for
can
sure.
totally
I just-
ask him next time you see him.
I just assume that if his kid ever ends up playing a sport or hockey or something, that he's definitely not missing any of those games either. He's gonna be the Iron Man father as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then going back to the guy that we just have constantly talked about for the last several weeks, Bobby McMann had two. Notice how I said McMahon that time. Had two milestones this week. He recorded his 100th NHL point against the Lightning, and he was not done there because on Saturday against the Sabres, Bobby's assist gave him 10 points in 8 games since joining the Kraken. This is the fastest 10 points in Kraken history. Matty Beniers and Jared McCann did it in 11 games, and shout out to Mike Benton for dropping that stat on Twitter. So again, I feel we have lots of point and goal benchmarks happening on the team this year, which we always love to see.
Yeah, it just highlights more that you just cannot get rid of Bobby McMann.
Yeah, I mean, and he's at 11 points after that 10th. He got his 11th in that 8th game as well. So, dude, it's just unreal. No one could have predicted it.
Yeah,
Jim
okay, Derek.
Halpert side eye into the camera.
Derek's just like holding like the friggin' ball from Lord of the Rings, and he's like, oh, 11 points.
They were all away games this week, so we have no shovel stories, unfortunately, but it sounds like we'll have a pretty exciting one next week coming up. Alex, how does our week ahead look for the Kraken and for the Torrent?
Well, it is a big week ahead for the Seattle Kraken. We have 3 pivotal games. Not saying that, we have 10 games left, so every game from here on out is pretty pivotal. But we got 3 games on the docket this week. So for the Seattle Kraken, they are playing on Tuesday in Edmonton against the Edmonton Oilers. And then they are back at home. Thursday, they play the Utah Mammoth. And on Saturday, they play the Chicago Blackhawks. So 3 crucial games for the Seattle Kraken to see if they can secure a playoff spot this season. And then meanwhile, the Torrent have 1 game this week, and it will be Saturday against the Sirens at MSG. So, yeah, important games for both sides. The Torrent, I think it'll be a big game in determining if they can start, cementing their plan to securing that first overall pick. And then, the Kraken have 3 massive games coming up, in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. When it comes to predictions, God, this is tough because the Oilers are not the Oilers of seasons past, and with the missing Leon Draisaitl, it's another key player that this team will be missing, and then their goaltending is horrible. So I'm going to say they're going to go 2-0-1. I think they're going to beat the Oilers. I think they're going to beat the Blackhawks, and I think they're going to lose to the Mammoth in overtime. But I think there's going to be 5 key points that this team is going to come out of. And then the Torrent, hey, screw it. They're going to beat the Sirens. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go overtime loss to the Oilers, and then regulation or overtime win. I don't care how they do it, but win against the Mammoth and Blackhawks for a whopping 6-game point streak. So let's get it done. For the Torrent, if they're gold plan, I want them to win. If they're not, I want them to lose so that they get gold plan, like Matt was saying. So lose it up until that plan hits, and then you can actually start scoring again.
My prediction for the week is the exact same as Derek's. As long as we get points in the Oilers and Mammoth games, I'm feeling good. Blackhawks one would obviously be a cherry on top, but the big one for me for sure is we need to get the win over the Mammoth because that's wild card ground that we need to make up. The Saturday game for the Torrent against the Sirens should be super exciting for a bunch of reasons. One, it should probably set the U.S. attendance record for a pro women's hockey game, which will be the third time this season that record's been beaten because it just keeps getting jumped and jumped and jumped. So that'll be pretty exciting for the Torrent to be part of it. And yeah, like Derek said, if we're in a gold plan, go for it. If we're not, I wouldn't be upset if we lost and we can start accruing some of those points. But mostly, I'm just looking forward to seeing what the atmosphere at the world's most famous arena is like. I know Jess, who was on the pod before when we were talking about Mason Marchment, she covers the Sirens for the Hockey Writers and I think is going to the game. So we'll maybe have to get a little snippet from her to see what that was like because I'm assuming it's going to be just absolutely unreal. Alex, we always got to go check down with our birds. So how are the Firebirds doing?
Well, the Coachella Valley Firebirds are officially sitting fourth in the Pacific Division. They have jumped up a spot from fifth to fourth, so they're making some important ground with a record of 37, 21, and 5. So they are good. They are strong. The Pacific Division is absolutely one of the strongest divisions in the AHL, ironically, opposed to in the NHL. So yeah, the Firebirds sit with 79 points on the year. They sit one back of the Barracuda, and they've both played the same amount of games, so they could easily take over third in that division. They have 3 games on the docket this week. First off, they play the Rain on Wednesday at home, and then they are away to the Abbotsford Canucks on Friday and Saturday. So their season is gearing up for playoff action coming really soon. So it's going to be exciting for them. Hopefully, they can finish off the season strong, solidify themselves in a solid position for playoffs and such, and keep making that run that they've done in the past. So like I said, we have Kraken hockey. Hopefully we can see some Kraken playoff hockey, but for sure, if that does not come to light, you're definitely going to have some Firebird hockey in the playoffs this year as well.
Sweet. And that's going to do it for this week. Derek, if people want to find more about BGW online, where might they be able to do that?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. But first, before I tell everyone that, I just want to say go over to bit.ly/BTW store. That's where you can buy the dope merchandise that we've made. We have an amazing Philip Grubauer design incoming. You might have seen it leaked by us on Twitter, not by the Utah Jazz, by us. And it is, it's Philip Grubauer related. It's like dental, or not dental. Oh my God. It's not dental. It's not dental related. It's vision related. It's vision related. And it's Grubauer related. Go check it out. It's like a
Why don't I help you? Because that was rough. When you go to the eye doctor and they have those charts at the end of the room and it starts out with a really big E and then it gets smaller and smaller on the font and you're supposed to read it to see if you have 20/20 vision or better. I have 20/15, by the way, thanks to my laser eyes. So heck yeah,
Whoa.
Great investment. It's that, except the first letter is a big G and the second line says "Are you?" and then just fills in U's for the rest of the space. So it's definitely going to be an eye-catching design that we are going to hopefully get uploaded to the store right away. You can go get one, t-shirt, hoodie, tank, whatever you want. And it'd be sweet if we can get those up and in at least one person's hands to wear it to CPA and hopefully get him to see before the season wraps up here.
That'd be sweet. You're definitely going to want to cut your teeth on one of those. Also, go on over and check Heather's articles out. The link is in the show notes. You can also follow her at Heather Nicole with no E and at the Hockey News W to see more of her work, and keep your eyes on your podcast feed to see when she drops more PWHL episodes. Please drop a follow and a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice and follow us on all socials. It helps us out a whole lot if you could take a second to like or comment on those videos. And I just wanted to say, Bobby McMann is the fucking guy. What else can I say? go on over to bit.ly/BTW store and grab one of those Philip Grubauer Vision things over at BTW SEA. All right, that's it for this week. See you next time. Bye!
We going beneath the waves. Going